Hi everyone, my name is Grace Murray and I'm a sophomore nursing student and theology minor. I was actually inspired to take a minor after taking Intro to Jewish Civilizations, which fulfilled my Halc requirement with Professor Orr in the fall of 2019. This class focused on exploring the history of the Jewish people through literature and media and is sponsored by the Center for Jewish Civilizations. Today I'm going to be discussing a little bit about an essay I wrote for the class, which I titled Joseph, the Original Jesus, a Literary Analysis of Joseph's Impact on the Gospels. Writing has never been my strong suit, and this Halc class challenged me to think outside the box, especially about writing this work. I wrote against my own personal beliefs, arguing that the story of Joseph is actually a model for the Gospels of Jesus, and Jesus' story is not original due to the numerous parallels. The New Testament and Jesus are considered to be a replacement of the Old Testament for Christians. Jesus creates a new and supposedly improved covenant with God for everyone. Furthermore, Christians and many scholars consider ample passages of the Old Testament to foreshadow Jesus' messianic actions. This is a concept known as typology, which is defined as the historical correspondences between certain Old Testament and New Testament persons, events, or things. Except, in my opinion, the story of Joseph does not just foreshadow Jesus. In contrast, it parallels and is almost exactly like Jesus' story, and this is like no other biblical character. Obviously, this claim leads to the heretical possibility that the authors of the Christian Bible borrowed themes from those of the older Hebrew Bible. If you're interested in reading my whole essay, the document will be provided, but I'm going to highlight a few of my favorite points. One similarity between Joseph and Jesus is the role both men play in their families, and that's that they are their father's favorite due to their miraculous births. Joseph's birth was incredibly difficult because his mother Rachel was barren until God performed a miracle to make her fertile at an old age. Joseph's father, Jacob, sees this conception as an absolute blessing and favors Joseph like anyone else. Many of us are familiar with Jesus' similar story. God blessed Mary with Jesus, which is a miracle because she was a virgin. Essentially, God wills the inconceivable to occur for Jesus, but he honestly did the same thing in principle for Rachel to give birth to Joseph. Numerology also connects these two biblical characters. Joseph was one of 12 brothers, while Jesus was one of 12 with his disciples. They also both began their influential reigns in society at age 30. Joseph was appointed to rule under the Pharaoh, while Jesus begins his ministry. It's honestly really important that it's really important to note that though many numbers, like especially the number 3, are seen throughout the Bible because they're considered lucky, 30 is not one of them. In fact, the only other biblical character to start their reign at 30 is King David. Joseph and Jesus were both humiliated and sold by their closest 11 companions as well. Joseph's brothers all banded together to rid Joseph from their lives because they were jealous that he was Jacob's favorite. Therefore, when Joseph came upon his brothers in one of the passages, they stripped him of his tunic, which is the ornamented tunic that he was wearing, and took him and cast him into a pit. Many of you probably recognize this specific part of Joseph's story because he's known for his colorful cloak, which was given to him by his father to also signify his favoritism. Likewise, Jesus is stripped of his clothes after being betrayed by his disciples, to whom he often refers to as his brothers. This disrobing of the characters signifies both their losses of power. For Joseph and Jesus, when they are disrobed, they lose the power over their brethren. Joseph is no longer present in his brother's lives, and therefore they no longer experience Jacob's favoritism at first hand, so they're no longer jealous. Jesus, on the other hand, is forced to submit to the Romans and accept his crucifixion. And moreover, neither Joseph or Jesus, even though they were their father's favorites, could not prevent the betrayals. However, my honestly favorite parallel between Joseph and Jesus are they both sold for silver. Joseph's brothers sell him and he becomes a slave. And Jesus, on the other hand, is turned into a high priest by Judas and he's given silver for his actions. The motives of both Joseph's brothers and Judas are jealousy and greed. But I think the most shocking and I think convincing part of my argument is the diction of the price of Joseph and Jesus is identical. Either man could have been sold for common goods at that time, which are gold, food, or animals. Except the Bible uses the exact same diction. Pieces of silver, not silver shekels or coins. This matching phrase might have been directly transcribed by the Gospels from Joseph's story. Therefore, they'd be using Joseph's story as an absolute model for Jesus. Those are some of the few points I wrote, which you can find linked if you're interested in reading the complete version. I'm really honored to present my work for the Halc Symposium, and I'd like to thank Professor Orr for all her help during the semester. I would highly recommend taking her class if you ever have that opportunity. I hope you're all safe and well.